Alright, everyone, by the time you're watching this, it will be December 31st and the last day before the end of this decade. So, for today's video, this is going to be kind of a decade in review as to what's happened with game wisdom, and it has been a very long and strange 10 years for me. And I think looking back, this will probably be the decade that has pretty much, I think, defined who I am both personally and professionally. And normally I don't really do a lot of reminiscing because I'm always focused on what's coming up next, but it is, I guess, a special occasion. Starting back way in 2010, before any of you have probably ever heard of me, I left my job at Comcast doing customer support, which was probably the most hellish position I think I've ever had in terms of a job. And since that point, I was kind of sputtering around trying to figure out what I wanted to do for a living. I had my own little blog in terms of writing about video game topics and game design. And then my friend Ken in 2011, or I think it may have been early 2012, said, well, this is great and all, you need a proper site, you need a proper brand. And so we spent the better part of that year coming up with game wisdom and kind of setting things up as that being my own professional marketing brand going forward. But at that time, he asked me a question as to how do you want to make a living doing this? And I didn't quite have an answer for him. We were basically just going by write about video games, profit. And it kind of stayed that way for a few years. Now, for the people that I reach out to and kind of grew my own knowledge on game design, they loved the kind of stuff I did with game wisdom. And I think I still have some longtime fans from back then, because there really wasn't, arguably there still isn't, a lot of reputable and knowledgeable takes on game design and game development as opposed to game journalism. And speaking to the developers over the years, people like Chris Park, John Schaefer, Soren Johnson, and many indie devs we had a chance to speak to there, one thing that always came through was how much they really appreciated what I did with Game Wisdom and having an outlet for these kinds of discussions. And that kind of talk was a major motivator in terms of keeping me going, especially during that time when there really wasn't any money coming in at all doing this. I started my Patreon, I think that was back in 2013, 2014, and it has grown at a glacier's pace. And I'll come back to that later on. During that time, I started doing transcribing, kind of freelance stuff, and also gave myself a third-degree burn because I did so much typing that I had to just keep my arm constantly heated up with a heating pad. I left it on for too long, and there's now like a little scab, which you can't really see on my arm, at least at this range. But for the first half of this decade, it was just basically living kind of pretty much by the seat of my pants, not really knowing where I was going to go or what I was going to do. I did temp jobs in terms of data entry and, brought money in, but really wasn't doing anything in terms of advancing my career. And it really wasn't until 2016 that things began to shift. That was when I officially started the YouTube channel, after doing, I think, about a year or so on Twitch, just normally, just doing things like that, and began talking more about game design industry topics, kind of as an offshoot of the Game Wisdom site. 2016 was also sadly the year that my grandfather passed away from skin cancer, and that year kind of marked a lot of big changes in my life. I also started doing my very first presentation at the end of the year, and sadly it happened just several months after he passed away, so I never had the chance to tell him about it. But the back half of this decade, I guess, was a very big point in terms of how I advanced both professionally and personally. From a personal standpoint, this was when I began to become more open in terms of being able to talk reliably and comfortably in front of a camera here, talk to podcast guests, and of course doing all the videos, live streaming, and again the live presentations. And if it wasn't for the YouTube channel, I don't think I would be able to do the presentation because I would be just too nervous and unsure of myself. this was also the time when I started to find or get more people following me and providing me with advice. People like, of course, Rob, Josh, Child, and several others, so I'm sure I am forgetting off the top of my head. But these are people who began to give me more advice, not just in terms of, you're always doing a great job, but being able to actually assist me and provide guidance as to what I'm doing wrong, where I can improve, things like that. And going from 2016 to about, I think it was 2018, was just a hard push in terms of getting to 1,000 subscribers, let alone getting to where we're at now, just a little bit over 5,300 subs. And it has been a very tough journey to get there. Of course, last year was when I actually started doing more in terms of writing, and I can now add author to the many little weird skills I have thanks to doing Game Wisdom and just everything that's going around with it. And for those of you, again, who have missed out on some things that have been going on lately, this was a year that I've started to do really big pushes into kind of education and academia with doing presentations at libraries all around the US, and then, of course, reaching out beyond that to the wider world, because I know there are plenty of places in Europe that have extensive or interests in game design. But the big point is that as we close out this decade, while I am certainly not at the point where I am living off of my work, I do feel like a change is happening. That I can actually explain to people not only what I do for a living, but can explain to them, how I'm making or hoping to make a living off of it. And I had arguments with my family before as to just what exactly I do on a day-to-day basis. And a lot of my family still doesn't understand. They think I just sit around and play video games for 10 to 12 hours a day, and then that's about it. Oh, you should have heard the explanations when I started getting donations from the Super Chat and try to explain that to my family. I still have I still have family members who explain that every Sunday I do a live radio show here on the channel. But it has been just a fascinating journey. And like I said, I think that the next year, and probably the next year after that, is going to be a very big change in terms of kind of my success. I've been posting a lot more on Medium, and I've found quite an audience over there as well. The Discord channel has grown in leaps and bounds. And again, hitting 5,000 subscribers, I think that was about 2 months ago, was a huge push, and we're now hopefully on track to hit the next big goal, which is 10,000. But along with that and the presentations, I still have plans to write books 3, 4, and who knows how many more I can keep going. And I am sitting here waiting to hear back from my publisher to let me know that things are locked in terms of the contract, and when that happens, I will be letting everybody know. But as a final little bit of news, or a final little bit of discussion, I just want to say to everybody, thank you so much. Again, I'm not an emotional guy, but I do mean this from the bottom of my heart, that I want to thank everyone who has been supporting me either long-term or short-term. For the long-term people, whether you've donated or just been enjoying my content, thank you so much. As I said earlier, the fact that people or developers were always saying how much they appreciate what I did was a huge motivator to keep me going, and made me realize that there was important work here to be done by Game Wisdom, and again, trying to grow this discussion on game design. To the people who have donated, I really do appreciate it. Whether you've donated a little or a lot, it's all helped to kind of keep me going. And while, like I said, it hasn't been enough that I can say I'm living off of what I've done, it's been enough to kind of keep things running, at least slowly but surely. And if everything goes accordingly into 2020, I hope that by the end of next year, I can honestly say that I'm living off of everything that I've done. And as I always keep telling people, if you have any comments or suggestions or feedback, please let me know. I'm always happy to take criticism and see where I can improve. Other than that, I don't know what else to say about as we switch over from 2019 to 2020. Again, looking back has always been tough for me because I try to always keep going forward and not dwelling on past mistakes. But again, thank you so much. I hope that everyone continues to enjoy the things I've done, and I hope I have more announcements to make into the next year. As always, be sure. And with that, this will be officially the last video for 2019. We'll be doing our countdown into 2020 tonight live, and I hope to have a few surprises, hopefully, set up. But thanks for watching, and again, thank you so very much for being a supporter here on the channel. And I will see you all tonight as we do our countdown. But until then, take care and have a great rest of the day. And now a quick shout out to our current Game Wisdom supporters and sponsors. All Patreon supporters will now get early access to our videos, and if you'd like to continue this discussion on game design, be sure to check out our Discord channel, linked down below.